Listen up. This story isn't what you see on TV every night. No glory, no heroics, just cold, darkness, and a fear bigger than anything you've ever imagined. Let's start. Have you ever heard of Kursk? That night, the Barents Sea was as silent as death. The surface was flat, the moonlight shattered into streaks of silver drifting across water, cold as ice. Nobody knew that. More than 100 meters below, an 18,000-ton steel monster was shifting, slowly heading out to sea, with 118 souls trapped deep under the ocean. A place so cold, even death himself would hesitate to step in. Can you picture it? The sub's compartment, sealed tight like a coffin, sickly yellow light flickering across Russian sailors' faces, eyes cloudy from lack of sleep, haunted by the secret mission they might never even get to talk about for the rest of their lives. They had no idea that this night would be the end of every manliest day they'd ever had. Not a single one got to send a message long enough for their loved ones. This story isn't about superhuman heroes. It's a warning for anyone who thinks steel and technology can beat the limits of human survival. Kursk. Just saying the name sends chills down your spine. It was the peak of Russian naval tech, a nuclear attack sub, the pride of a nation that once thought it could blow away any enemy in minutes. 118 sailors stepped onto that boat like walking into a temple of power. Not everyone gets a seat here, and even fewer have the guts to survive if something goes wrong. But the deep sea shows no mercy to anyone. On the morning of August 12th, 2000, Kursk got orders to join the biggest naval exercise in a decade. Russian generals, Western commanders, American and NATO military satellites. Everyone was watching the cold northern seas, where the big boys' game was about to begin. But what about the Kursk crew? They were just pawns, with zero choice. And when the war machine kicks into gear, everything gets swallowed by orders, missions, cold, emotionless procedures. Just one tiny technical error, one faulty torpedo, could rip that boat open and turn it into a steel hell in seconds. The first jolt hit at 11:28 a.m. Other subs and nearby warships all reported a collision deep below, the sound echoing like a death knell straight out of hell. And then, silence. Kursk vanished from all communication. No SOS. Nobody knew what was happening at that depth. Now, put yourself in the shoes of a Kursk sailor's family member, just getting told the sub is missing. And then, for days, nobody stands up to answer anything. No press, no military, no words to reassure. On land, Russian generals started holding meetings. The press got silenced. Imagine what it's like for mothers, wives, little kids, just sitting on the beach, staring at the horizon, hoping for a miracle they know deep down will never come. But Compartment 9, at the bottom of the Barents Sea, was a different world. Down there, dozens were still alive, clinging to every second of hope, using the last of their light to scrawl shaky words on crumpled paper. We're still alive. Don't give up. In the dark, I think of my kid. If my body stays forever at the bottom of this sea, who's going to tell him the truth? I'm not afraid of dying. What scares me is that no one will remember why my crew and I had to die. Afraid that even my name will only survive on a few soggy sheets of paper under freezing water. I just hope one time I could say, "Son, don't believe what they print in the news. In life, only truth and guts will save you." Maybe you're wondering what went through their heads when they realized they were being buried alive inside a steel tomb. Were they scared? Did they blame anyone? Let me tell you, when you're at the edge of life and death, all fear turns into a quiet madness. Nobody cries, nobody begs. All that's left is guts, and a silence so thick it's suffocating. The days that followed, up on the surface, it was all political theater. Leaders arguing, media covering it up, Russian Navy refusing every offer of Western help. They held on to pride, kept secrets, didn't care that every passing second meant another life was being squeezed out by the sea. 118 people, 118 souls, slowly choked out under the ocean. You want to ask why no one saved them? Because sometimes what kills people isn't water or fire. It's arrogance, power, and cold decisions made in some distant office. And then, when the wreck finally got pulled up, all the worst fears came true. All that was left were final letters, scribbled words, a pain no one could ever wash away. That cold, it's deeper than the ocean, deeper than any fear, and it sticks to the shadows of everyone still left alive on land. Don't sit there thinking you'll always be safe. Kursk is a lesson, a death knell for every illusion about power and immortality. Listen to me. There are moments in life when every illusion of invincibility shatters, with no warning. In compartment 9 of the Kursk, at the bottom of the freezing ocean, that truth cut as clear as a knife to the bone. 118 men, all once proud sailors of a mighty nation, tough guys who thought they'd seen it all, and with one steel door slammed shut, all their pride was strangled in heavy breaths and thick darkness. The air in that compartment wasn't just low on oxygen, it was thick with the smell of burning wires and the haunting sweat of men facing death. Nobody had the energy left to put on a brave face anymore. Every breath had to be rationed. Every sip of water passed around was a last piece of hope. In that darkness, a young sailor finally spoke up. His weak voice echoed through the cramped space, asking if anyone out there would come save them. The old commander turned his gaze, eyes deep as the bottom of the sea, no anger, not even hope left. Just the quiet of a man too familiar with the thin line between life and death. At that moment, he made no promises, gave no comfort, and didn't bother with a lie. Sometimes, silence is the last respect an old soldier can give his comrades. In that space, each man started reaching for pen and paper, maybe to hang on to their last shred of humanity, or maybe just to write down what they'd never said. The names of wives, children, hurried messages scribbled in shaky handwriting by the dimming beam of a dying flashlight. No one mentioned fear. No one begged for survival. All they left was one wish, that their loved ones would keep living, to be strong for the lives they'd never get to finish. Sometimes, someone would try to tell a funny story, their voice breaking between heavy breaths. No one laughed out loud, but just the presence of the story was enough to remind everyone they were still alive, not yet swallowed by the deep. That's the kind of courage that doesn't need to be flaunted, just quietly shows itself in a squeeze of a shoulder, a nod, a head leaning against the cold steel wall, with no one daring to speak it aloud. Outside, waves kept pounding the shore. The city lights still burned, and their wives and children probably didn't even know about the nightmare drowning these men. But down in that cold abyss, time in compartment 9 wasn't measured in hours or minutes anymore. It was counted by each pounding heartbeat, every breath that got harder, and the fading light of a few dying flashlights. Just try to imagine it. You're locked inside a steel compartment inches thick, lying on the bottom of a sea so cold, your bones feel like cracking, surrounded by suffocating darkness, with no hope left of ever seeing daylight again. Your mind starts spinning between only two choices. Give up, close your eyes, and wait for the sea to take you. or grit your teeth and fight back, just to hang on to the last shreds of what it means to be human. Some chose silence, leaning against the frozen hull, eyes half closed, as if speaking to God or anyone waiting on the other side. Nobody knows what they're thinking, but sometimes that calm is scarier than a scream. Some couldn't hold back tears, not crying because of fear of dying, but tears of anger, burning like coals, aimed at cruel fate, at the big shots safe on shore, or worse, at themselves. Because feeling helpless to save your comrades, or yourself, hurts more than death creeping in. In another corner, someone pulled an old photo from his pocket. The paper yellowed, a kid's smile on her first birthday, a faded picture he'd kept hidden like a lucky charm. His eyes red, staring at the photo, hoping somehow faith would carry his last message to the surface. And sometimes, someone just couldn't take the suffocating tension anymore, suddenly bursting out in mad laughter in that cramped space, then falling silent, eyes wild and empty, the look of a man with nothing left to believe in. All of them were Russian men, raised through Siberian winters that cut to the bone. Some had fought in Chechnya. All had seen their country grow poor and rotten after the fall of the USSR. They thought they'd seen all the pain there was, but nothing had ever prepared them for the feeling of being buried alive with dozens of others in a steel coffin at the bottom of the ocean. If you still think you're strong just because you've made it through some tough times, try picturing yourself drowned in this kind of darkness and despair. Then you'll know what the ultimate limit of a human is. How many people really understand what it means to wait, especially at the bottom of the sea, when every single breath is a gamble. The sub's clock just kept flashing, each red number stabbing us in the face in the dark, as if to mock. How much longer till your pride finally breaks? But let me tell you, down here, nobody counts time in minutes or hours anymore. We just count our breaths. Every inhale, the chest gets a little heavier. Every time you hear a crewmate coughing his lungs out, you know one more guy's about to go down. Inside that steel coffin, there were still a few guys clinging to hope, whispering like kids, "They'll come save us. They have to." Looking at them, I just wanted to scoff. Trust who? Trust what? Trust the brass on shore who are more worried about keeping secrets than about all of us dying down here? Trust those radios, dead silent like a grave? That's life. When you're trapped at the bottom of the sea, the first thing you lose isn't your life, it's your faith. Honestly, down here, nobody's afraid of dying. I swear, what chills us to the bone most is being forgotten. Dying, and nobody remembers. Nobody understands. Nobody even bothers to say your name. That kind of death, that's when the sea truly swallows you up. Ever thought about it? What do you become if no one keeps your story alive? There's a young officer, pale as a ghost, still forcing himself to write a log on crumpled paper. Like every line he scribbles is the last string tying us to the world above. 8:30, still alive. Air thick as glue. Someone's coughing like hell. It makes my skin crawl. 9 a.m., water starting to seep into the hatch, flashlights almost dead. I miss my mom. 10:10. There's noise out there. Not sure if it's waves or a rescue ship, but who's ever gonna get down here anyway? We passed hope around like passing breaths, pretending to believe someone up there was searching the surface. But deep down, every one of us knew this game was rigged. Time here is the cruelest thing. It erodes hope faster than salt water eats your skin. Every breath, every glance, every word gets smaller and smaller. After a while, All you can hear is the clock and your own heartbeat pounding like it's saying, "You're all alone now. Just you and the deep sea, and the fear of disappearing without a trace." Listen up. The real face of power gets exposed on the surface. Not down here, but it still haunts every soul dying in silence below. While lives are being drained hour by hour by cold, by hunger, by despair, chewing us over and over like salt in an open wound. Up there, a bunch of guys in fancy uniforms sit around a table, putting on their little emergency, directive, briefing shows. But every look in their eyes says one thing: fear. Fear of what? Fear of taking responsibility. Fear of losing face in front of the world. Fear the world will find out. Russian technological pride was really crushed by a cheap, faulty torpedo. That kind of power. When it meets the truth, it hides faster than a cockroach when the kitchen light comes on. The generals, the fleet commanders, even the Russian president himself, sat there weighing every word, every move, but all they really thought about: keep it quiet. Don't let anyone find out. Don't let anyone see our dirty laundry. The Navy turned its nose up at every offer of help from the US, the UK, Norway, excusing it as handling it ourselves. But the truth is, nobody wanted outsiders poking into that pot of rotten secrets. Pride, national face, put above every life gasping for air at the bottom of the sea. That kind of honor only matters when it's used to cover up failure. But the lives of each sailor, nobody cares about those. The press was gagged, only allowed to publish statements handed down from above, not a single extra line. The families of the sailors were isolated, fed empty promises, not allowed anywhere near the rescue site. A Russia that once made the whole world tremble was now reduced to the quiet moans of people who knew they'd just trampled over the blood of their own comrades. That shame, nobody dared to speak it out loud, but everyone knew. It spread through every corner, soaked into every word, every look from those who survived. Just by looking, you could tell. Russia didn't sink with Kursk that day, but it could never hold its head high again. You think everything ended in 2000. Don't be naive. Even today, somewhere in the world, there are new Kursks being buried alive by power, by lies. Every time you stay silent, every time you bow your head and let things slide, you're digging the grave for your own generation. Kursk isn't just Russia's story. One day, it could be your name left in the darkness, with nobody left to remember. In this life, the worst pain isn't death. It's having to wait on the edge between hope and despair, not knowing when the bad news will finally hit. On that freezing shore, you'd see a long row of wives, mothers, sitting close together without saying a word. Their eyes locked on the dull gray water, as if staring a little harder could call their loved ones back from the depths. On the radio, the announcer repeated the same dead-sounding lines, the kind that make you want to smash the speaker. The Kursk has lost contact. Rescue efforts are ongoing. Ongoing what? Ongoing cover-ups, ongoing lies, ongoing efforts to keep everyone in orderly despair. Every hour that passed, the fragile hope in their eyes got thinner than morning mist. At first, some screamed and cried, but after the tears ran out, all that was left was heavy breathing, the sound of someone hopelessly calling out a husband's or son's name. Some couldn't cry anymore, just sat there silent, digging their fingernails into their own clothes without feeling pain. This kind of pain makes no sound, just wears down your bones, turns your hair gray in a single gray afternoon. The kids just clung to their mothers, wide-eyed, asking the one question that breaks your heart. Where's Dad? But here, nobody could answer. Nobody dared tell the truth. Nobody dared hope for too long, and nobody was cruel enough to kill that last spark of hope in a child's eyes. So they just sat there, a motionless line of people, facing the freezing waves, the northern wind whipping through their hair. Every second of waiting felt like a needle stabbing right into the heart of everyone left behind. With every breath, I could smell burning wires mixed with human sweat and salty brine, sticking to my skin. The flashlight cast a pale, sickly yellow light, shining on the faces of sailors who looked 10 years older after just one night. The sound of gasping breaths echoed in the compartment like a saw cutting through bone. The cold wasn't just on our skin, it sank right into our minds, so deep that even closing our eyes, you could still taste the metal and feel the thick darkness swallowing every last shred of hope. If you've never waited for someone in total despair, never had to answer a child's question with nothing but silence, you'll never understand the pain of those who waited for Kursk to rise from the bottom of the sea. 7 days of waiting, 7 days of clawing at hope with bleeding fingernails. Then, on a gray morning, the bad news dropped like a blade cutting away everything left. The Kursk has sunk. No one from the crew survived. Nobody screamed anymore. The ones left just looked at each other, then out to the distant sea, where the wind and waves kept raging, cold as ever, as if it hadn't just swallowed 118 lives into its pitch-black depths. If you've read this far and you're still breathing, I want you to do just one thing. Tell at least one other person. Don't stay silent. Don't let it all fade away. Just one time forgetting, one time keeping your mouth shut, and another, Kursk will sink to the bottom, drowned by stupid power and cheap pride. And don't think your own name will stay bright forever. One day, the deep sea will keep your name where no one remembers. In the hands of the rescuers were farewell letters, crumpled paper, shaky handwriting, ink blurred by tears and salt. Just a few lines, but they weigh like a boulder on the chest of anyone left on land. Don't forget us. I'm telling you, if that line doesn't send chills down your spine, you've got no heart left. But history never softens, never has mercy on anyone. People will keep living, keep worrying, keep forgetting, until the next Kursk sinks to the bottom, until another line of women sits along the shore, until the sea slams shut the steel lid again over men who thought they were immortal. You survive. You must remember. Otherwise, you're just another shadow passing through this life, like the 118 souls lost under that cold water, with no one left to call their names. You think everyone will scream and cry at the edge of death? Hell no. In that steel compartment, every mind was a mask, falling away with each minute, each gasp. Some guy would grip a water pipe, eyes locked on the darkness, muttering every prayer he knew, not because he believed in God, but because he needed to cling to anything beyond himself. Some just sat like stone, blank eyes, and every time the flashlight swept across, you could see a new wrinkle, another hair gone gray. Real strength wasn't in yelling or cursing, but in that look of acceptance. Nothing left to lose, nothing left to fake. Just you and the truth at the very end. Another guy sat against the hull, rubbing an old photo, eyes closed, trying to bring back his daughter's laugh, his wife nagging about laundry. All the old, ordinary sounds suddenly turning into a drug, making him ready to suffocate without a struggle. Tell me honestly, how many times in your life have you thought about your loved ones with that much late regret? But some would just burst out with a rough, crazy laugh, then fade into the darkness. Fear and madness tangled up. Nobody knew who they were anymore. Nobody kept any dignity. just the animal instinct of a man being buried alive, clutching at his crew, at each breath, at every unfinished story. While at the bottom, the play was all about survival with no clear ending. On the surface, every stupid decision was stamped with another red seal. Every emergency meeting was just generals blaming each other, passing the buck like kids fighting over a piece of bread. Don't let the press in. Don't let the US, UK, or Norway get close. Keep it secret. Save our national honor. What kind of honor needs the lives of 118 men to cover it up? The pride of a Russia that once made the world tremble, now just crawled into the dark, afraid someone would see a faulty torpedo and the empty self-respect behind all that steel. Every rescue chance was killed by paperwork, by cold orders, by the kind of power that, when trouble comes, only knows how to run from responsibility. Nobody dared to step up. Nobody spoke the truth. I can't do this. Let someone else save my brothers. The result? The sea swallowed the ship and the pride, leaving a stain that couldn't be washed off the headlines or the Russian soul for decades. In the end, the ones in power were only good at acting. When danger hit, they rushed to cover up, spilling the blood of soldiers just to save face. Every red stamp on a paper meant more men died quietly on the seafloor. Call that national pride, but it's really just a bunch of cowards too scared to admit they screwed up. When all hope was strangled, pulling up Kursk wasn't a rescue anymore. It was cold surgery, slicing open the country's pride in front of the whole world. To even do that, Russia had to give in and call in foreign experts. The divers looked like astronauts, step by step, closing in on the wreck. A fortress once seen as untouchable, now a mass grave in the Black Sea. They pulled up the wreck piece by piece, each sailor's body hauled out in a soaked uniform, faces twisted from cold, from hunger, from death coming slow. Some corpses still clutched a wet scrap of paper, some with just one word left: don't forget. The funerals had no crying, only long lines of people holding hands, teeth chattering from sea wind, and a fear that spread across Russia. International press circled, Western cameras missing nothing in the shadows, while Russians felt anger, shame, helplessness. The truth was out. Your technology means nothing if you put pride above human lives. After Kursk, Russia was never the same. Faith in the military, the leaders, that unbreakable strength, snapped in two, just like the sub at the bottom of the sea. Every winter after, every new exercise, people brought up Kursk, a cold shadow behind every report, every speech. The families, every time they looked at the sea, saw the eyes of loved ones who never came back. The heaviest consequence wasn't 118 dead bodies, but the moment people realized nothing is immortal, not even national pride. Lies, cheap pride, and stupid decisions killed a whole generation. And if anyone still refuses to face the truth, there'll be more Kursks that never surface again. Thanks for watching until the end, and I only need you to do one thing. Tell this story to at least one other person. Don't stay silent. Don't let everything get buried under the mud of stupid power and cheap pride. Just one moment of forgetting, one time you keep your mouth shut, and there'll be another Kursk sinking to the bottom of the sea. And don't think your name will shine forever. One day, the deep ocean will hold on to your name, and no one will even remember it.